Hello and welcome to FOFA News. I am Despy, your host, your resident in Japan that talks on U.S. politics. So let's dive into it with the Department of Education and Trump's current plans to dismantle it. Donald Trump signed an executive order on Thursday that instructs the U.S. Education Secretary, Linda McMahon, to start dismantling the Department of Education, seemingly attempting to circumvent the need to obtain congressional approval to formally close the federal department. When it comes to closing a department within the federal government, the president can't do that unilaterally. He actually has to go through Congress in order to do that. Without congressional approval, he can't do it. However, what Trump currently is doing is he's using Schedule F within the Project 2025 framework, and what he's basically doing is he's taking those nonpartisan positions and filling them with sycophants. And those sycophants are basically running the Department of Education without necessarily doing their job correctly, because they're following his orders instead of what they're supposed to be doing. So the way the system is supposed to function is not functioning how it normally would function. It's kind of like, if you have a car and you turn the key on and the engine still starts, right? But if you take the wheels off of it, it isn't going anywhere. Basically, taking the wheels off is in placing those sycophants so that the car doesn't go anywhere. So while they say that they've dismantled the Department of Education, they haven't destroyed it because they can only do that through Congress. So let's continue on a little bit farther, okay? So the executive order targeting the education department, which has been expected for weeks, directed by McMahon to take all necessary steps to shut down key functionalities. So Trump added at the signing ceremony that he hoped McMahon would be the last education secretary. And I quote from Trump, "My administration will take all lawful steps to shut down the department. We're going to shut it down and shut it down as quickly as possible. It's doing us no good," said Trump. Oh, and you can bet it will close fast. Faster than Melania's legs after that Stormy Daniels incident. So the bulk of the education department's budget is made up of a federal grant program, or federal grant and loan programs. Okay, this is including the $18.4 billion Title I program that provides funding to high poverty K through 12 schools, and the $15.5 billion IDEA program that covers the cost of education for students with disabilities. So the White House has said that those programs, as well as the $1.6 trillion federal student loan program, would not be affected by this order. It was not immediately clear what spending cuts the administration would be able to achieve without cutting those initiatives. So it's going to be really hard for him to get savings and cut things all over the place without those three programs that I just listed. Those three programs make up the bulk of the spending for the Department of Education. So if he's going to get savings, he's going to have to cut through these programs in order to do so, and that's going to wildly affect how education is done within the states. And would you look at that, the Democrats are now speaking out to the problem it's going to cause. Let's hear from Hakeem Jeffries on this. If you can't tell by my tone, I'm not a fan. Shutting down the Department of Education will harm millions of children in our nation's public schools, their families, and the hardworking teachers. Class sizes will soar. Educators will be fired, special education programs will be cut, and college will be even more expensive, Hakeem Jeffries, the U.S. House Minority Leader, said in a statement. Except, in true Democrat fashion, Jeffries leaves out exactly what the Democrats are actually going to do about it.
Please, sir, I want some more.
What?
Please, sir, I want some more.
More? Catch him! Snatch him! Hold him! Scout him! Pounce him! Round him! Pick him up and run!
Fight back, do something, anything, wave your hands, yell, but we know exactly what's going to go on here. Maybe they'll bring their little signs and hold them up, to say that they disapprove with what's going on. Maybe they'll all just get on their pink outfits and, and just wear those around, and then, that'll make a statement. Or maybe they can all just go into the rotunda and kneel with a kente cloth. Maybe that kind of protest will get the fight that they need, to get back into this. Except with that fighting spirit, I've seen more fighting spirit in fresh roadkill than I have in 95% of the Democratic Party.
Stop the car, Jethro! Take the the road. Can't just leave it there.
You're right, Granny. Roadkill stew sounds mighty good right now.
Oh, no, you don't, you old coot. I seen it first.
Some Republicans support the idea of sending block grants to states that aren't earmarked for specific programs, letting states decide whether to fund low-income students or students with disabilities instead of requiring them to fund the programs for those students. Programs that don't affect students directly, such as those that go towards teachers' training, could also be on the chopping block. Expanding the use and promotion of school vouchers and installing parents' rights policies are also likely. So in late January, Trump signed an executive order to promote school choice or the use of public dollars for private education, and to remove funding for schools accused of radical indoctrination. Trump also revived the 1776 Commission to promote patriotic education. The Education Department boasts that in the first weeks of Trump's administration had dismantled diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Soon after Trump took over, the department was loaded with key staffers tied to the right-wing think tank, the America First Policy Institute, often referred to as a White House in waiting. The think tank has supported driving out diversity programs and banning books, which the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism documented in a report on the Institute's ties to the Education Department. The Policy Institute has promoted installing Christianity in government, including in schools. All of this language reminds me directly of the Brown v. Board of Education, when the POSs in the South basically decided they wanted to create segregation schools. Not segregation in public schools, but segregation schools, which were actually private schools with the idea of only allowing white kids to go to the private schools. And can you guess what these tackle maggots decided was the best way for them to get public funding for these private schools? Think about it. Ding, 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 ding. That's right. Guess what they were going to use? School vouchers. The voucher system. Wow, the voucher system. A voucher system so that they could send their white kids to an all-white school and completely exclude black people. Now, I have no problem with private schools. I do have a problem with private schools that segregate based on race. I would have a problem with a private school that segregated based on disability. I would have a problem with a private school that segregated based on parents' political affiliation. I would have a problem with private schools that segregated based on religious or ideological beliefs. That would definitely be a problem for me. Can you imagine a school where the only thing that anybody ever teaches or is taught is basically all the stuff that everybody in the school already agrees with? Is there no marketplace of ideas anymore? I mean, you think about this. I mean, this isn't any new. It's straight out of the same playbook, just with different branding. I mean, right now we're talking about DEI, right? I mean, less than 4 years ago, it was CRT, wasn't it? And before CRT, it was the radical left, wasn't it? And then before the radical left, it was cultural Marxism, wasn't it? Can you see a pattern here? This is 4 times rebranded cultural Marxism. That's all it is. The Department of Education was designed to be a watchdog. And it was supposed to be a watchdog to make sure that we had equal protections for people, whether they had disabilities, inequalities as it pertained to poverty, and inequalities as it pertained to race in certain aspects. The Federal Department of Education was designed to be a watchdog to protect against states being academically dishonest. It was also to protect against neglecting special needs situations, whether the kids are blind and need Braille, whether they're deaf and need ASL, or if they're dyslexic and they need extra help with reading or numbers. And this was also designed to help mitigate impoverished children and make sure that they don't descend further into poverty. So with this dismantling, basically what you're left with is what your states are going to give you. So if your state legislator decides that you don't need special needs education, then you're not going to get it. There's no oversight. There's no protections anymore, like with the IDEA program. The IDEA program was the protections that the federal government had so that if your child has Down syndrome, then the school is required to get a specialist to come in to help teach your child with Down syndrome. That's not in place anymore. So if your state decides that they don't want to do that anymore, they still get the grants and funding from the federal government. It's just they're not required to allocate it specifically to those children with those needs. So if you're poor, impaired, or need assistance, Trump just shot the bodyguard and the person that's supposed to protect you. So the America First Policy Institute is now going to start revamping how education is going to be done in the red states that allow it. So you're going to be seeing things like a resurgence of like the lost cause narrative. For those of you that are old enough to remember what this is basically a rewriting of what happened in the South before and after the Civil War. You're not only going to see that, is you're probably going to see a lot more religious iconography as well as religious references within the state mandated material. So now let's talk about what you can do to prepare. First thing you need to know is that you need to prepare your home for substandard classes. So you need to be proactive. There's plenty of resources online that are free and available. You just have to search for them to give your children like adequate education at home to work on the subjects that they need to. And it's a lot harder when the kids are actually going to be like beyond like 5th grade. Like getting those materials is going to be a lot difficult, and curating those materials as a parent are going to be a lot more difficult. But it's okay. This is something you're going to need to do to supplement what the state is not going to give your child. And so you should prepare for lessons to be taught with a religious tone, and that there's going to be more heavy-handed nationalism added to the lesson. And there's not really going to be much that you're going to be able to do about it. You can complain about it, but because it's up to the state legislatures now, and there's no federal watchdog watching over this, you're basically beholden to the state legislature. And lastly, for the love of God and all that is holy, please get more involved in what's going on with your local Board of Education. You should know the names of every member on your local Board of Education, and you should try and know and find out what their policies are. And not only that, you should be very active within that Board of Education, and if you need to vote people out and vote specific people in, you should do so. This also goes for your state legislature. If you see that there are state representatives that are voting in a way to put more like religious additives to classes, or voting to put more nationalistic points within classes, you should be trying to vote those people out, and you should be vocally trying to vote those people out. And it may be difficult, but in some of these districts, some of these representatives at the state and local level, they run unopposed. You may be able to run against them, and you may be able to start a small campaign to actually stop them. And if you can't do it, you might need to find somebody who can, and somebody who is willing to do it at the same time. But the thing is that you need to vote people out at the state level, vote people out at the local level with your local Board of Education, and this will be the only way you can truly fix the problem, because the Fed has decided you're on your own. So now we got to take it to the Fed. Take care, be strong, be safe, and we'll talk to you later here at FOFA.